Hello, everyone. Welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays here on the Dill Pickle Movie Network with Kelsey and Dill. And it is very early when we're recording this, so I'm going to try my best to make it sound like it's not, even though you could hear it in both our voices. You could probably tell we're recording this very, very early. But because we needed to get you all a review of The Marvels, the newest movie to hit theaters, the newest MCU movie since, what was it, Guardians 3, right? It's been that long?
Yes,
And last Marvel
correct.
movie since Across the Spider-Verse. So it's going to be cool to talk about it, especially given the polarizing reception online. Some people love it, some people hate it. I feel like there aren't a lot of people who are just like in the middle on it. But that's what's going to make it very exciting today. I have seen it twice at this point because I really wanted to like iron out my thoughts. But Kelsey and I did go together
Jill, you're
opening night.
cheating on me? You're going
No.
to see Marvel movies with
Uh,
someone else?
well, you'll feel a little bit better when I tell you I went with Zach and Rachel. So at least it's another friendly MCU couple of
Okay.
competitors. They wanted to get back in the Marvel mindset. They're filming a match very soon. So,
Mm,
Kelsey, I mean,
hmm
where do we start with this? I guess we always start non-spoiler, and then at the end we'll give us some spoilers. But
Yeah.
overall, blanket thoughts, blanket summary. What do you think about the Marvels?
Jill, I've been really reluctant to have this conversation with you because as everyone knows, we see these movies together and then we don't talk about them
Right.
afterwards
It's the
until we sit
funniest
down
thing.
and record.
Yeah.
Um, because I feel like I know your opinion of this movie, and I feel that it is different than mine.
Did you get a sense of it just based on how I was reacting, or
Yeah,
just because of how everyone else is reacting, or what?
I got a sense based off of your reaction, at least during like one key part in the movie. I felt like I don't know, I could feel some disdain coming
Okay,
from you,
okay.
emitting from your essence. Um, but I'm going to say, like, the first thing I wrote down when I started, like, mapping out all my thoughts about this movie was I enjoyed it. I enjoyed myself. I had a good time. Obviously, like, the as far as, like, MCU content goes these days, we haven't been getting the best quality stuff, but I think that this is better than Quantumania. I think it's better than Thor: Love and Thunder. I think that it was very short. It's the shortest Marvel movie, and I think that that didn't help at all. I think it could have used, like, at least another half hour to really flush some things out, but at the end of the day, I walked away from this movie really, really um, excited for what's to come next because obviously we got some post-credit scenes that set up some good stuff. And it's been a minute since I really walked away from a Marvel movie like excited for what's to come because I feel like everything we've seen so far is we're not sure if it's like Guardians 3 was like the ending
More a
of a
conclusion.
trilogy
Yeah. Same as Thor:
and
Love and Thunder. Yeah.
same as Thor: Love and Thunder, like, Quantum Mania set up a villain we're not even sure we're really getting anymore, like, we're
Yeah.
it's just been, like, very wishy-washy lately,
Mhm.
like, the rumors that are what you believe is to be confirmed that Wanda's now dead post, Multiverse of Madness, so
Yeah,
we don't even know
I
what's
didn't
going on
it's
there.
I'm not just believing it off a whim. Kevin Feige put it in writing, but
Okay, well, I have to look into that because I don't know. Who I just maybe I'm just in denial and I don't want that to be true.
right.
Um,
That's how we
but
all are, I
anyway,
think.
that's where I stand with this movie. What are you thinking over there, Dill?
I completely agree with you. I
Okay,
completely like honestly every single thing you
that's
said. I'm
good.
like yes, yes, yes. I think you like it a lot more than I do, but I think you exactly said exactly what I thought. It was so much more fun than Quantumania. So much more fun than
Yeah.
Love and Thunder, but like it's got some glaring writing and plot structuring issues
Mhm.
that an hour and 45 minutes just makes everything feel like a super cut version of what the real cut is. And I think this is kind of going back to what we talked about last week with the pre-production stuff or the post-production stuff. It
Mhm.
feels like Nia DaCosta made a really interesting movie and Kevin Feige hacked the shit out of it in post.
Mm.
And I
Mhm.
think, I mean, it really is interesting because you have some sequences here where I'm like, this is some of the most interesting and original and creative stuff I've seen in the MCU. Two scenes that I know everyone hates on the internet, I freaking love in this movie. And
Okay.
we can't really say what they are. We'll talk about it in spoilers, but one
Yeah.
involves music and the other involves flirkins, and both those scenes people hate, but I really like because it's like showing that Marvel's willing to be weird, take big swings, and
Yeah.
I also think the chemistry between these three characters is so strong. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of the times Marvel almost takes something that is great on its own and makes it less because they have the need to, oh, let's put in like more battle here and less story, or let's put in more jokes here, less story. Like, oh, let's
Mhm.
go from Monica having this really emotional moment about her mom to immediately Kamala being like, oh my god, I'm wearing your pajamas. Like that to me is like where I'm like a little bit
Mm.
off here, because it just felt like every time I was in it, I was like, okay, okay, okay. They would just like either cut to the next scene too quick, or there would be like a really crappy rendering of a visual effect. And that's where it's tough too, because the visual effects for the most part in the body switching is really good, and the
Yeah.
Flurkin stuff is really good. Those cats look real, they look like real cats. The problem is
Yeah.
whenever I think I've realized what my visual effects problem is. It's not the singular like visual effect creature designs or anything like that. Like I
Mhm.
think they do a good job making the effect. I think what the problem is the layering of other effects with the live action, because the stuff
Mhm.
I hate is the one like there's the after the musical moment, there's a big fight there, and all of the lighting is so weird. The coloring is off. Like you can tell Brie Larson's stunt double is there. Like it's not even Brie Larson's face when she flies
Mm.
up in the air. Like it's just little things like that where I'm like, this is the stuff that you need to put more care into, or just skip over this. Because honestly, we don't want to just like sit around and watch this battle take place with this villain we don't care about. I'd rather just watch the three of them talk and three of them have moments together. And I think that was the
Mhm.
problem with this movie for me, was that it didn't spend enough time just being the enjoyable, you know, dynamic of these three characters and focusing on their growth. Instead, it was more focused on plot, and we need to get here to do this thing to get this thing, which ultimately resulted in very little payoff, because I don't want to say what happens when someone gets hold of the Bengals, but it just kind of like happens, and then we're just like done. Like I just feel like that's my main issue with the movie, is I feel like in editing they kind of just hacked away at a movie that I think could have been really good. And I've seen a lot of
Mhm.
people compare this to the Justice League, how it was Zack Snyder's Justice League, and then when he had to leave for family reasons, Joss Whedon stepped in and like kind of just made a really crappy movie with the
Mm.
rest of the studio. And I feel like that might have been the case, because as we know, Nia DaCosta, you know, went on to work on something else, but then when reshoots happened, they didn't really invite her back. They kept her out of the editing room, which I think shows, because I am also a fan of her work, and I didn't really get a sense of like, this is a Nia DaCosta film the way when you watch Black Panther, you're like, oh, this is a Ryan Coogler film, or even Love and Thunder and Ragnarok. I don't love Love and Thunder, but you know it's a Taika Waititi film. James
Mhm.
Gunn as well. Like I don't feel like Nia DaCosta's style was really given time to show and flourish in this film. But on rewatch, I will confirm, because originally when I watched this, I just did not like it with you when I was with you and I saw it. I think it was also because I had a really bad headache that day, and I
Mm.
hadn't eaten a lot that day, and my dinner was popcorn and Skittles. But
Mhm.
I do think the next day when I saw it with Zach, I was like, you know what? I think I was being a little harsh on this, because at least I'm having fun, because I
Mhm.
like these characters and I like the dynamic, and I did not mind all the humor. We'll talk about that in a sec, but I did think still the plot and structuring and like the over plottingness and the rushingness of the plot to get to one place to
Mhm.
another still stuck out to me. But I did have much more fun with it the second time, and I think this is kind of now more like lower middle tier for me than it would be just like the worst of the worst, like it is for so many people. And but it's not
Yeah.
like the best of the best like it is for so many people either. So, but I think you described it perfectly. Like it's more fun than the past few efforts we've been getting, except for Guardians. And
Mhm.
but it has some issues with how fast it is and how rushed it is, for sure. Like that's my
Yeah.
biggest criticism, and you nailed it. So I'm not definitely I'm this is not going to be a battle of debate either, because like I think I the second time around I was able to appreciate it more. So I'm happy to talk about the good stuff about it, because I think
Okay.
the bad stuff is obvious, you know.
Well, that makes me glad now that
Yeah.
you've seen it a second time, because
Mhm.
I was so nervous still, like, I could just tell in your body language and in your face while we were watching it, I was like, "Oh my god, Jill hates this," and I was giggling, I was like my little
I
feet were
know. You
kicking,
were clapping at the end.
I was clapped, I had a good time.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I just one of my biggest takeaways was that although, like, the pace like, this movie starts and it takes off running, like, it's not like, there's really not a second to breathe, which is, like, a good thing and a bad thing because,
Mhm.
there's not really any part where you're, like, bored and you're not, like, engaged with what's
Right.
happening
Yeah.
because you have to be, like, the entire like, every scene in that, movie is, like, essential to knowing what's why things are happening and what's going on, like, you just have to pay attention. But they also then by doing that sacrifice some like really really profound moments that I think should have happened in the film.
Mhm.
Like this was the first time since the year 1995 that Monica and Carol were going to be interacting with each other, and they really didn't have a moment to kind of like recognize that and talk about
Mhm.
everything that happened. I mean, Maria, they both lost Maria to cancer while Monica was blipped, like
Mhm.
that's not a spoiler. This happens and we find this out in WandaVision.
Yeah.
But um and they really don't get like a second to talk about it,
Right.
which is crazy.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest issue too, is that I feel like a lot of the times people leave movies, and if the actors are charismatic and they do a lot of stuff in the movie, it's character development. But if you look at each character on their own and their development, honestly, in my opinion, I think Monica probably does the most because from
Mhm.
point A to point C, she at least has the biggest change of like perspective, and like, she went from like kind of resenting her Aunt Carol to at the end, loving her and working alongside her.
Mhm.
But the problem is also a lot of the growth we see is like just like through flashbacks of Carol and Maria rather than like stuff with Carol and Monica, but also
Right.
Carol herself. I feel like this is a movie that I think the fandom really was so harsh on Brie Larson the first time that I feel like there's a really good Captain Marvel movie here that deals a
Mhm.
lot with the fact that when she saved the world by killing the Supreme Intelligence, she really created a mass genocide on another planet and created a civil war. I think that's
Mhm.
a really interesting element. Probably not the most like it was a little weird given the times we're living in right now that we're dealing with like a character who causes mass genocide and civil war, and like we have to root for them. Like I think that it was just like one of those like poor timing things to have a movie about that about genocide.
Sure.
Obviously, in a world we're living in right now with everything that's going on overseas, but I also think like that at least is a very interesting character starting point for her, being like
Yeah.
this like when they call her the annihilator and the idea that she has this burden. But I also felt like because of the poor reception and the sexist reception to the last movie of all the like sexist men just saying, "Oh, Brie Larson has no personality. She can't, do a film on her own. She can't stand alone. This character sucks. This character's boring."
Mhm.
I think they were like, "Oh, we need to give her a team then, because she can't be
Mm.
on her own." Whereas I think if honestly this was just a Captain Marvel 2, if you had Captain Marvel 2 to kind of just like flesh out her story, I think it would have been stronger. And then you can have a
Mhm.
team up. The problem is, I
Mhm.
feel like they had to build on so much more of the first movie, but they were so afraid to just let it be a Captain Marvel 2 because of the reception that they needed to change the name to the Marvels, make it a little bit more gender accessible, and like have these other
Yeah.
characters in it. And I really do think it took away from some of the growth Carol could have done herself too, because she has a lot in this movie as well. And then with Miss Marvel, she's obviously a lot of people's standout because I think Iman Vellani is so charismatic and so energetic, and we love to see it. But
Mhm.
really, how does her character change from beginning to end? I couldn't really tell you. She is geeking out over working with Captain Marvel. At the end, I guess she's a little less geeked out and more like, oh, we're a team now. But in terms of
Mhm.
character development, I don't think she does any growth in this. I think it's more so her series is where she does the growth. In this film, I actually think there's more growth for her parents who have to learn to let her go and just like learn that like the mom says a great line. She's like, this gift that was given to you, and you need to go use it and save the world. You have to leave, but I will
Mhm.
never let you leave. I like you understand that, and I really like that line. And I think her parents get more development than she does, and she's just kind of there. Honestly, it felt a little one note in the writing of her. Just like every time she spoke, it was just about how cool it was to see Captain Marvel and be a part of the team, and oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Mhm.
She sells it well to where it doesn't feel one note because of the performance, but on paper it really is a one note. Like it doesn't really go anywhere, that arc, in my opinion. And the one time
Sure.
it did go there was when that scroll, is it a scroll colony is like being demolished, and like they're trying to get off on a plane, and Carol's like, you can't save all of them, Kamala, get in the plane. And Kamala has this moment where she's like almost fighting back tears because she's like, what? Like they're innocent
Mhm.
people going to die. And then we cut to the next scene where she's like, it's okay. Captain Marvel will make it right. And then it's like all forgiven. And then we never revisit that again. And I really do think in a bigger cut, we're getting a moment where Kamala is literally questioning her hero. Like, is
Mhm.
this really the person I looked up to? That would have been a much cooler exploration. Then immediately we're at the music planet. So it's like, for me, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff would have really done a lot for Kamala's character, because right now Kamala, in my opinion, is the least changed of the three. And that's
Yeah.
not her fault as an actress. I think she's great in it. She's really charismatic. I
Mhm.
really loved her, Aman Vellani. But I think that character wasn't given a ton of arc to do either. I think it was more about her parents. And then Nick
Yeah.
Fury, he doesn't even need to be there. I mean, he's funny in this as well, but it's like they didn't really find a really good story for him. All he was doing was kind of being a catalyst for Kamala's family story and for Goose laying all the eggs, you know? So it's not like he
Yeah.
really did anything. He was just kind of observing, which I guess it's fine to have like just a comedic relief. But what were your thoughts on the different arcs and the character development and stuff?
Um, yeah, Dill, I pretty much agree with everything that you said. I did notice that when they had that moment on that planet where, Kamala was kind of having the "don't meet your heroes" moment, where
Yeah,
she realized that, like, oh, maybe this person that I look up to is also kind of like flawed and not this perfect um being that I thought she was. And I thought that, that they were really going to lean into that, and that there was going to be this almost like animosity and this like questioning of, whether or not, you know, um Kamala even wanted to be there, and there
right.
was going to be like a whole, you know, plot revolving around that. But then as soon as we cut back into the spaceship, Carol apologizes and is like, "I'm sorry I snapped at you, but like, we had to get out of there." And then they, send off the scrolls, and then like all is forgiven, and then we're like on to the next thing. So I think it was definitely a letdown to like not see that flushed out, and I think that definitely would have helped her growth for
Mm,
sure. Um, it's funny that you bring up her growth because I've a thought to say when we get into the spoilers
yeah.
that kind of contradicts
Okay.
um what we were just talking about. But as far as Kamala's family goes, though, I thought that they were a great comedic addition in
Yeah.
this movie. I
Hmm.
didn't think that any part of like what they did was like forced or like too much. I thought that they they did a great job at just like being their little wacky selves on this
Yeah.
spaceship.
Because you know what? Like in Spider Man, we really don't get that with Aunt May, where she's like, Peter,
Yeah.
watch out, be safe out there. She's very cool, Aunt May.
Yeah.
We've never gotten the protective family of superheroes before, and that's such a cool dynamic. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. And I think they are really good. And I honestly think of all the arcs, Kamala's mom probably goes on the best arc in this film. I really do think
Yeah.
so. The moment where she starts, where she's like, mm-mm, no, 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 Captain Marvel's a bad influence on you. You can't go out there. No, 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 you can't fight superheroes. And then at the end, her like giving that emotional speech, like I was tearing up. I was like, she's
Yeah.
really giving it. This actress, I need to pull up her name. She's amazing. You probably know it,
Yeah.
trivia purposes, but I don't. But
Uh,
she's so good.
I was reading the names at the end. You said something during the credits, and you were like, all these actors' names are five pointers.
Five pointers because they're not as well established American mainstays. Even though
No, yeah.
I will say it was very interesting in my research. I didn't realize. I got to pull up his name real quick. I'm not going to reveal what relation he is to Carol, but there is someone we meet on a planet that we get to know for maybe like 3.5 minutes, who seems like he should be a bigger character in this film. But Park Seo Joon plays him. I can't find the character name right now. It's what's his name? What's his name? Park Seo Joon plays Prince Yan. Prince Yan.
Oh,
And I didn't even realize, like, because Brie Larson had done an interview, because now SAG's over, SAG strike, yay. Brie
yeah.
Larson's doing interviews now, and she was like, this is the most famous person I've ever worked with. And I was like, really? And I looked, and he is like a megastar in Korean art. Like in Korea, he is like a South Korean actor who is like the movie star in Korea. So it's pretty cool that he was in he has a very small role in Parasite as well, because like I think
Mm,
just everyone wants to use him in their movies because he brings in
yeah.
box office. So hopefully that spells well for the overseas performance for this film, because it's not doing too well domestically in terms of box office, the lowest
Right.
opening for an MCU film ever. But I do think it was very interesting just reading up the fact that like the biggest movie star in South Korea is in this movie too is pretty cool. So it's cool how the team they were able to assemble for this movie, big and small, in terms of actors. And I think the acting is really the strong point of this movie. I really do. I think so.
Yeah.
I like Brie Larson a lot in this too, and I know people hate her still in this role, but I thought she was
Mm.
really good here. Like I really enjoyed her moments. I thought she was great.
Jill, it's funny that you bring up, um, I know, like, before seeing this movie, I had the same thoughts and feelings as you as far as, like, like, why are they already giving Carol a team? Like, she just got her first standalone movie. Like, she should at least have, like, a second one before they start, like, pairing her up with people. And I never really felt I never really minded that she was with, 2 other characters, because I feel like even though we've only gotten 1 standalone Captain Marvel movie, I feel like through, like, just knowing her, or I guess, like, knowing more of her from, like, Endgame, I guess, that, like, at some point she says a line where, like, she has it's when Monica and, Kamala are first, like, all together, like, in her, like, little like, spaceship that she lives in, and she's like, "Yeah, honestly, I don't mind having the company. It gets, pretty lonely out here." And because, we get this sense from her that she's been doing everything on her own, like, she's been taking care of this, like, entire vast universe, like, by herself, like, she has that line in Endgame where everyone's like, "Well, where the heck have you been?" And she's
Right.
like, "There's a lot of other planets out there that are dealing with the same exact stuff, like, that Earth's dealing with." And
Hmm.
so we kinda get this sense that, like, this is a person that's been doing, like, has been a one-man band her whole life, and now, I think that having these 2 characters around her were was actually really helpful in, like, flushing out, more of her character, and, like, you kind of, like, watched her kind of understand how to lead a team and, like, work with others, because, we didn't really see that in Endgame. She comes in and, like, swoops in and does, like, one thing in
Hmm.
Endgame, and she doesn't, like, she's not there for the whole, like, working together, and, like, she's obviously not part of the time heist
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Um, because I think that, like, especially having Kamala with her, like, really kinda, like, softens her and, really softens the dynamic between her and Monica, Like, if it was just her and Monica, then, like, we'd kinda have, like, we'd kinda be at a standstill in this movie, but because they have this, like, heart and soul and this, like, fresh, like, bright, innocent, like, person with them to kinda, like, cut the tension a little bit, I think that the dynamic between the 3 of them, like, works really, really well, and I don't think that the other 2 even, like, overshadowed Brie
Hmm.
at all. Like, I think that she still is able to, like, hold her own and, like,
Yeah.
really be the quintessential Marvel in the title The Marvels.
Right.
Um, so I think that it worked really well. You said something about Nick Fury earlier, and I just wanna say that this is the goofiest Nick Fury that we've ever gotten in the
Yeah.
MCU, to the point where I wasn't even convinced that it was, like, actually Nick Fury. Like, I thought that it might have been, like, a Skrull
Let's
pretending to
talk about
be
that. Let's talk
Nick
about that,
Fury.
because this whole movie, and this is also one of the qualms I guess I had with it, is like it did very much feel like like kind of one of those like TV specials, like Jimmy Timmy Power Hour, where like you have like, these characters from different shows you've been watching
Yeah.
finally, because in order to enjoy, I guess not enjoy this film, but in order to like understand every ounce of this film, you have to have watched Captain Marvel, but you also probably should have watched Endgame. You also have to watch all of WandaVision. You have to watch
Yeah.
all of Miss Marvel, and I guess you have to watch all of Secret Invasion, even though they really
But,
don't
like,
reference
not
it at
really,
all here.
though.
They really don't. But that's the thing. When does this take place in the continuity? Because this is not the same Nick Fury from Secret Invasion at all. And if you
Yeah,
are
no.
telling me that Secret Invasion happened before this, I would laugh at you because A, where is his wife? Because don't they end together
Right.
in Secret Invasion?
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
they
yeah,
leave
they
together?
go into
And
Saber
B,
together.
why is he now like he looks better, he looks younger, he also
Yeah.
is acting more jovial, he doesn't act like this washed up like, and I think that's a problem is like it's not a movie that does stand on its own because it is relying on other projects, but the other projects it's not being consistent with, at least not that one.
I think that this must take place, like, pre, Secret Invasion because of the, you know, I don't wanna say it because I think it's a spoiler, but, there is a moment that they have with Skrulls, obviously,
Right.
because that was the key element of the first Captain Marvel, so it's not a spoiler, like, you're gonna see Skrulls in this movie,
Right.
whatever, um, but because of what they do with those Skrulls, I think this is pre-Secret Invasion,
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But
because
that yeah,
otherwise, like,
yeah.
that because otherwise, then that moment contradicts everything that happens in Secret Invasion.
Right, because
You know what
this
I
was
mean?
supposed to release earlier in the year, if I remember correctly, like early
Yeah.
summer, I think. So this was supposed to come out right before Secret Invasion. But my thing also is like, even Nick Fury at the beginning of Secret Invasion, when he comes to Earth, is still more grizzled and like, I'm over this shit. And this one is like, no, he's having fun. He's got his
Yeah.
iPhone, he's got all these new flirkins now. That's
Right,
not really
right.
a spoiler because that's not a big plot spoiler, but like they have this whole subplot of these like random brain looking things popping up over the ship and everyone's like,
Yeah.
oh my god, what's this, and then Goose has this moment where he almost kind of like lashes out at them, he like kind of hisses at them and like starts like licking himself and everyone's like, oh, what's wrong with Goose? And then it turns out Goose is pregnant and Goose gives birth to a bunch of baby flurkins,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about that sequence. I guess we can talk about it now because it really isn't a spoiler. They have to get off their ship and get into these escape pods. They have one escape pod left and this whole crew left. And they're like, how are we going to shrink down to get into this escape pod? Let's have the Flurkins, all these new baby Flurkins that just were born, literally eat us
Yeah.
and put us in them and then put all
Yeah.
the Flurkins in the escape pod. And it plays to the needle drop of the year. I literally, when they started playing the song, I was like, no way, they're not doing this. They're not doing it. What? They play Memory from Cats,
Yeah.
and they don't just play it, they play the entire thing. They play the entire song. The key change happens right after the escape pod is ejected. The touch me, it's so easy to leave. That
Yeah.
may be my favorite MCU moment of all time. And
Yeah.
I know people online are hating on it. They're like, it was stupid, it was silly, Cat sucks. I thought that was terrific.
Um, Jill, and this is one of those moments where it was like they're finally in the escape pod and then they're trying to get to Earth and they're like, like something's malfunctioning. They're like, ascending like way too quick. They're basically like preparing for like a bracing for impact. And I'm like, Nick Fury doesn't know how to fly this fucking thing. Like, this is not the smart, like, quick-witted, like on thinking on his feet Nick Fury that we've known and loved for all of the
Listen,
MCU.
Kels,
Like, this version of Nick Fury was just so whack and so out of left field. I was like, he just shouldn't have been here. Like, we didn't
he
need him.
if he's not in the movie, the only thing we are deprived of is Kamala's family going up in space. But you could have had them still reacting the same way
Yeah,
down below.
they could.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
the thing
guess.
is, it's like I'm not even thinking about that during that moment because I'm just so. You saw my face during that moment, right? Because I was
Yeah,
loving all that. I was like, no way, I cannot believe this is happening. I was almost like, oh my god, like, and that's the thing. Is like I feel like there's a great movie. Like I feel like every scene had the potential to be like that. But I think that's also another thing is you're dealing with a film that has flirkin babies running around swallowing people and putting them in escape pods to the song
mhm,
Memory. You also have Kamala Khan being like fun and goofy, but you also have mass genocide and this villain who is like trying to end the world. Like I just feel like it's one of those like Marvel problems of like very tonally inconsistent, but like
Yeah.
you don't have a James Gunn who can very easily navigate the tonal shifts,
Right.
which I think was another problem. But for the most part, I think it was a little tonally successful. Like I think the vibe was still like it kind
Yeah.
of maintained the same tone throughout, which I appreciated. It's just when it does want to get dark, it almost like because of the tone, they wanted to keep it tonally consistent. They didn't allow it to get darker, or get sadder, or get deeper,
Yeah.
and everything
Yeah.
was very rushed. But um, is there anything else we can talk about without talking about spoilers? We're at the 30-minute mark.
I mean, as far as the villain goes, Dill, just because you brought her
Ugh,
up,
yeah, I forgot there was
yeah,
one.
I wanted to get her to know her more. I think that this movie would have been more successful in like setting up the tone and like where we're at if we didn't start with it starting with Kamala. Because you start with like the fun, it's like, you're watching an episode of Miss Marvel. Like,
Yeah, well, the first scene is Darben on that planet getting
yeah,
the first bangle. Yeah, and then it goes right to Kamala. Yeah.
right. And then we kind of have like our cold open kind of moment with the villain, and she
Kelsey, use her name, Darben, because everyone knows her name is Darben.
okay, Darben.
I'm kidding. No, that's because an ongoing joke. Cinema Joe. Cinema Joe in his Letterboxd
Yeah,
review basically said, "I just left the Marvels. Not kidding. 5 minutes ago, and gun to my head, could not tell you the name of the villain."
yeah,
So that was
yeah,
the play on that because everyone
yeah,
refuses to call her by her name, Darben, because that's such an easy name that when you leave the theaters, of course you're remembering that name.
yeah. Um, and then it's like you're watching a Miss Marvel episode. Like we see the fun graphics. She's like, sketching out her cute little cartoon. She's being all Kamala Khan. And then, but I think it would have been better if we started in the point of view of Carol and we kind of got like the recap of like everything that had happened in Carol's life. And
Yeah,
I think that like had then it would have we would have understood more what Darben kind of wanted and what they were going after. And I
uh,
guess they want to save all the answers for like the third act of the movie because like it's something that they do have to figure out as a team. Like, oh, what does she want? What is she going after? Why does she need this and that and the other
yeah,
thing? Which I get, but I don't know. I think that
yeah.
they should have just presented this villain differently
They
to
show
us
they
because
show they show the villain's backstory at the end of toward the end of Act 3. And
yeah,
it just like it does not work for this case because the villain Zach was the only one I've actually talked to actually loved this villain and actually like thought it was a great villain. Because Zach was like,
yeah,
oh my god, she was so scary and all this stuff, but like I
yeah.
was like I don't know. She looked goofy when she made the face. Like whenever she got the power, she kind of like made a face that like looked goofy and she just didn't have any development to where I wasn't scared of her, nor was I invested in her either. Like it was such a phase one, phase two villain, like a Malekith type, where I'm like, who is this? Why do we care? Um,
I think that she
the
had
only
the
reason,
potential to be really great. I just think
yeah,
that they
of
just
course,
like didn't take the time to develop
right.
what needed
Well,
to
that's
be
my point.
developed
Yeah,
because she had the same power and kind of malice around her that like Ronan the Accuser carries. Like she even
yeah,
carries
they're
like a
both great.
similar weapon to him.
Hmm.
Like she really could have been great. I just think that it was on like these like cuts and these reshoots that happen post production. Bill.
Yeah, and then I'll say, like, I agree. Like, every villain has potential to be great. Malekith could have been the best villain in the MCU. It's all about execution. So,
Hmm.
actually, I doubt that. But
Well, I don't know.
Malekith, I don't know.
Who's to say?
Bad example, but I will say Zoe Ashton, innocent. I mean, obviously she's working with what she's given, and I think it's pretty cool that her movie came out the same day as her fiance's show Loki. So like, she's Tom Hiddleston's fiance. So I just think that's such like a cool like couples moment. What, Kels?
Tom Hiddleston is engaged
Yeah,
to.
to Zoe Ashton,
I didn't know
Darben,
that. Oh my
hmm
god. I'm so
right?
happy for them.
Yeah,
I
right.
wish them happiness.
Big day in their household, I'm sure. Um, Well, actually, I
Wow.
don't know because I'm sure he went online and saw some really good things, and then she went online and saw some bad things. So maybe it wasn't a great day, but they have each other.
I don't know.
Um,
Yeah,
and I'm
exactly.
not gonna contribute anymore to the Darben hate because I think she'll get her redemption arc in the next film. And we are 3 seconds away from the 35-minute mark, and we will start spoilers right now. Just kidding, no redemption arc because she dies as soon as she gets the other bangle, which was crazy. I that was my biggest thing. This whole movie, they're like, we can't let Darben get the other bangle. We can't. We
Yeah.
can't. We got to get it from Darben. We have to get Darben. Whatever. Darben. They finally get there, and then Darben is able to stop them. First off,
Yeah.
Darben gets stabbed, and then all of a sudden she flips the script and starts like pounding Kamala's head with this hammer, and then
Yeah.
she's able to rip off the bangle off Kamala, and then
Yeah.
immediately just combusts. I was like,
Yeah.
what is
Well,
going on? Like, is this what the film has been leading to? Because like I never got that on both watches. It was like, is it known that like she would just combust? I thought she was gonna take it and then like do something scary, and then maybe
yeah.
that's where we leave off for the next film or something. But they stopped the
Yeah.
villain so easily to where it was like really about fixing the universe than it was about stopping the villain because the villain kind of stopped herself. I just thought that whole
Yeah.
execution of the ending really left me on a sour note. And I think that's why leaving the theater, I was a little bit like, what? Because I was
Yeah.
like, that ending was just so bizarre and so rushed. And then all of a sudden, they're going to kill off Monica. And then, oh, nope, because it's the MCU, she's not dead after all. And then we get her in the post credits. It's like that whole like last like 10 minutes, I was like, there's just so much. There's a great scene in the 10 minutes, which we'll talk about. But like everything else about the villain and Monica,
Yeah.
it just all doesn't make sense to what the film has been building to. If anything, you would think that Captain Marvel would be the one to sacrifice herself because
Mhm.
Monica and Kamala are the ones who are kind of looking up to her, and that it
Mhm.
follows a pattern of what we've seen with a lot of these MCU things of Hawkeye's passing the bow, Thor is passing the hammer to his daughter, or Ant-Man passing the
Yeah.
torch to his daughter. You know, like that's what I thought we were getting here, but instead it's Monica and
Well, I
Darben just busts.
So, Jill, couple thoughts on what you said.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from with like, everything's leading up to her not getting the bangle, and then as soon as she gets it, she explodes. Um, but I think at that point in the film, like obviously, like they don't want her to get the bangle because it's like, Thanos getting all the stones. It's, she'll be at her most powerful if she gets the second bangle. And obviously, she'll then, the plan is for them to stop her from, like, because the whole thing is that she's making these holes in the jump points because she's taking other resources from other planets because Hala, the main Kree planet, is dying because ever since Carol took out the Supreme Intelligence, that was their main source of, like, energy and resources, so now they don't have water, they don't have a sun, their air isn't breathable, like, they're dying. And so now, because Carol obviously didn't realize that this was gonna be the result of her taking out the Supreme Intelligence, she just thought that she was, pulling the curtain behind the, you know, and exposing what they were actually, like, listening to and following and everything. Like, it was just this evil AI that made them do fucked up shit, and she thought that by eliminating that, the Kree were gonna be better people and they were gonna be able to live
Mhm.
free, but instead, she ended up killing their planet, and so the thought is that when she gets the second bangle, like, she's gonna be able to just, like, take whatever she wants from wherever and create all these different holes in the jump points. That's obviously not good for the universe, yada, yada. But then I think something shifts during that final moment when she does get stabbed and she's, like, lying under the piece of shrapnel that's kind of trapped her.
Mhm.
And, obviously Carol has been grappling with this, um, problem of her getting called the Annihilator because that's not how she wants to be seen. That's not her, obviously. And, Monica has this great moment where she's like, "Well, why don't you just use your powers to reinstall their son, jumpstart their son again and get the Creed like back up and running. Like this doesn't have to end with us killing her. Like we can just like help them. If you want to rid this rumor that you're this annihilating person, then like let's just nip this in the butt right now and help the Kree. And I think that then it becomes like, okay, so we're gonna save her, we're gonna save the Kree. That's our new mission now. And as soon as, she flips the script and gets the bangle, they realize that like, oh, that's way too much power. you're not going to be able to handle that. Like, obviously, these bangles are made for like only Kamala to be able to harness. And so they want to stop her from kind of, literally it combusting. And
Mm.
that's how I interpret it. Maybe I'm giving
No,
this
no.
moment entirely too much credit, but that's how I saw it at least. Um, so I did think that it was kind of like silly that we didn't get like a final blow or like some sort of like redemption for this character, that like she just kind of exploded, and then that creates the
Yeah.
split in the universe that then Monica has to go save, because she's the only one who can do it, because she has her powers allow her to do that.
I think that's another thing too. They don't really explain any of the powers in this movie. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can do this, and you can do this. It's very quickly
Well,
said.
we
We
know
kind of
that
know Miss
we
Marvels and
know we
Captain
get a
Marvels.
sense of what Kamala can do because of Miss Marvel. I mean, her entire show is about her
Right.
harnessing her
If you've
powers.
watched the show, which we have, but some people
Well,
who only see the
I
movies
feel like
haven't.
if you're neck deep in if you're going to see the Marvels, I think you've seen the TV shows. I think the majority of
Maybe.
the audience, at
Yeah,
least, I'd
but
say.
yeah, I guess.
I will say though, we were walking into the theater as the at wor I walked into the theater the same time with 2 people, not the theater, like the actual building itself, not
Yeah,
like the theater. Um, but there were 2 people in front of me who cut me, by the way, which was so rude
if
because
you're
I was
listening, shame on
I
you.
was ready, because when you're an A-lister, you have to be ready with your ID and your ticket, and I don't know what they were on that they just forgot this or didn't know, but they, like, walked up in front of me. They ran to get in front of me because they were pulled off over to the side, and I was all ready with my ID and my ticket ready. I would have taken 2 seconds to get into the theater, but now I gotta wait for you because you had to run in front of me to get to the person checking us in, and now all of a sudden they're like, ID, and they're like, "Oh, okay, you fumble with all my bullshit and then get my ID." When I could have been in 5 minutes earlier than I was, Dale, and I was already late because I fucked up on the trains. But anyway, that was just my little side rant.
Okay.
Where was I going with this? Oh, because they were talking about he was trying to fill her in with everything that happened on to Miss Marvel. They're like, "Oh, so you just got to know that she gets this bangle from like her grandma, blah, blah, blah." And like he's trying to explain to her like what's happening. I was like, "Girl, you're not gonna know. You're not. Why would you
But
care if you haven't seen the
yeah,
TV
and
shows?"
as a Marvel podcast, that's fine for us. But I'm thinking like for the general majority who like, what if you don't have a Disney Plus account and you're like, I get it. If you're a diehard fan, you'll get one. But it's also like some people can't afford one. Maybe there's just people who just want to see the movies. And I think if you are someone who just wants to see the movies, you're gonna get lost, especially with Monica, because I feel like all of a sudden
Mhm.
you're introduced to this character who, yes, you knew as a little girl in Captain Marvel, but like
Mhm.
you don't have any of her development in WandaVision either. So
That's Jill, as far as like I thought that they had great chemistry, and they all did a great job, whatever. But I kind of was missing a little bit of Monica. I wish there was a little bit more of
oh
her.
yeah, well, and it might just be, and this is where I know it's not Nia DaCosta's fault because Nia DaCosta is a black woman. I think there's in some of these reshoots and rewrites, I think there was like almost they needed to give Monica more to do, but it came at the expense of like there was a really bad joke like when they get to the music planet, because now we're in spoiler talks. When they get to the planet where they can only sing, which I loved, um,
Oh, right.
yeah, that she's
We got to
there
talk
and
about that.
he's like, "You've got to smile more," and like gestures to the black woman, and she's like, "What?" Like, ha ha ha.
Mm,
I'm like, okay, so now we're making those jokes, and I know there's like a commentary to be made about how men tell women to smile more, but when you have
mhm,
just introduced this fun singing planet, we don't see it as a commentary. We're just seeing it as a guy telling a woman to smile more. And I don't think the audience is going to click that that's not right. And instead, audience is going to be like, yeah, Monica, she doesn't do much. She's just, and I don't like that. And I also, there's
mm.
another racial joke that I hate where it's like Monica and Carol finally talk, and Kamala's dad's like, they do not look related because they're not the same race. And mom's like, oh, families nowadays, like and I get it.
Well,
Like, the delivery was funny, but it was also like,
yeah.
really in 2023 you're gonna make a joke about how two people don't look alike because they're different races. Like I feel like that's a joke you would have made in the early 2000s. I
Well,
was
I
just wasn't a
think
fan of that stuff.
I think that that joke was kind of purposeful because then you get the line where the mom corrects him and it's like, "No, no, no, like families are all different now." And it's I think that, in a deeper sense, it's commenting on how like, not only families can be different races, but you could have families with two moms and two dads. And I think that they're
Right,
kind
but
of
when the
it's
whole
like a
audience
statement.
cracks up after that, that's it's set up to be a punchline. She's like, "Oh, it's okay, all families are like that now," and then everyone's like, "Ah ha ha!" I'm like, I don't know,
Well,
it's little
I
things.
don't think it's the joke itself that it's the punchline. I think it's the delivery of just
Right,
like, "No, no, no, like, this doesn't involve us, like, all families are different," and then it's like a very quick cut back to, like, the serious conversation that's going on.
right,
I think that
yeah,
that's kind of the comedic
maybe,
part of it all. I
yeah.
mean, like,
It's such
I
a
get it.
minute thing, so, like, we don't have to
Sure.
spend too much time on it, but, like, yeah, like, little things like that, like, "Smile more, Monica." I'm like, "What?" Like, I don't know. That line just
Yeah.
seemed unnecessary. Let's talk about the singing planet, though,
Yeah.
because that moment in the theater, I went, "Oh my god, what are they doing?" But the more it went on, I was like, "You know what? Props, because you're doing something interesting, you're doing something different."
Yeah.
The problem is,
Yeah.
after, like, 2 minutes, she's like, "Alright, I'm gonna talk to you now because 'cause you're bilingual," which is a funny joke, but also, like, just keep singing. Like, that's what we want to
Mm.
see. Like, again, it's the point of everything that is good just gets cut off too short. The only sequence that gets to play out is memory because they want to get to that key change because the song forces you to. Whereas here, it's like I
Yeah.
feel like it was over and out, and then we're in this big battle with some shitty CGI. I'm like, come on, guys. Ugh.
Well, I will say, Dill, I thought that that moment was a lot of fun. It was definitely very, very colorful. Like
Hmm.
it definitely took us to a place where I never expected like a Captain Marvel movie to go because the first Captain Marvel was so like serious and like its delivery
Hmm.
and its message and everything and what it was trying to do. So to take this one to such a fun like playful place was super interesting and really refreshing for me. It really feels like a Taika Waititi, James Gunn moment where they just like go really bold with like the colors and the choices and everything. So I really enjoyed being on this planet. And I thought that the singing went on for as long as it needed to. I think that
Yeah.
had they spent the entire time singing, I think that it would have gotten really old. I mean, like we're musical people by nature, so we love a good song. I mean, you love the memory part, case in point. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that at a certain point, then people would have made the argument that like, "Oh, and the singing, that went on entirely too
Well,
long,"
they already are. That's the thing. I'm like, you've already lost people the second you decide to make the choice in the first place. When the
Mm,
little girl goes, "Hello," that's when people checked out. So at
yeah,
that point, you've already lost people. So you might as well just like, you're not gonna. I
commit,
don't think you're gonna continue to lose more people. I think you just commit to the people who do love it. And
sure.
that's the thing. Like, I think that was so fun. And honestly, good for Brie Larson because not since I don't think she's sang in a movie since Scott Pilgrim, right? Like, we haven't seen her musical chops, and she's good. She's good.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
it's a
she's
little
great.
weird, but it's good. Like, I don't know. I love
Yeah.
that sequence.
And I
Um,
loved the duality of, like, her having this entire, like, secret life, like, she, like, gets this gown that's, like, it looks very, like, much like her Captain Marvel, suit, but it's, like, this gown and, like, her hair's all curly now, and she's married to this prince, like, it was just, like, such a interesting dynamic because, like, when you think Captain Marvel, you think of this, like, nope, I come here to do a job and now I have a short haircut and I'm
mm,
doing my thing and I'm the most powerful being in the universe. And then it's just
right,
like, no, but I also, I'm a multifaceted woman. I'm married to the singing
right,
prince. Shit
right.
happens.
Yeah. So before we get into the three big cameos in this movie, or two big cameos, but let me just say one joke that also just kind of, not that it didn't land, because it rarely landed. We all laughed, but
Mhm.
that I started to think about for like too long afterwards. Like, I literally thought
Okay.
about this as one joke for 5 minutes in the theater after we watched it. When they're rattling off names for what Monica could be,
Mhm.
they say all these names and then they go Vision, and then Carol goes Vision, Vision. No, never mind,
Yeah.
because obviously it's Vision. She's hearing the name Vision.
Yeah.
Has she ever met Vision though?
Um,
She's not in Infinity War.
well, I'm sure she's like heard about him.
Really? You think? Because it seems like she's meeting all the Avengers for the first time at the end
Well,
of
because
Infinity War when they call her in an Endgame.
think about it. Like they're it probably was a moment that we don't see where he's like, "Well, where did he get the Mind Stone?" And then they're like, "Oh, well, there was this guy named Vision who's no longer with us,
Okay.
unfortunately."
Yeah, that's
You
good.
know what I
Okay.
mean?
Just because when I thought about it, I was like,
I
wait a
don't
sec.
mind. I
They're
mean,
not.
I don't I don't think that they've ever physically been on screen together or actually in a movie together, even in like a same movie together,
Right, because
period.
up
But I
till
don't
Age of Ultron, he's
yeah,
Jarvis, so she doesn't
yeah,
know about she would have had to learn about him from between Age of Ultron and Infinity War, or after the fact, after he's already dead, but then why would she have that, like, "Oh," reaction? I don't know. That was the one moment where I was like, continuity-wise, I was like, "She doesn't know
yeah,
Vision, what are you
sure.
talking about?" But I
No,
get how you're right, yeah, like, Nick Fury
I
must
think
have
that can
told
be
her.
easily explained, but I get where
Yeah.
you're coming from.
Yeah, it was just funny. All right, so let's talk about the. We'll talk about the one casting that was made years ago when they announced that she was going to be in the movie, but then we almost kind of forgot she was in the movie because she wasn't in any of the marketing. And then one
Mhm.
of the TV trailers a week before the movie showed her, and we were like, "Oh yeah, that's right, Valkyrie's in this thing."
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, so
I was
I feel like
surprised.
we might have broken the news like 2 years ago here when she was announced. But they announced that Tessa Thompson would be in the Marvels acting
Mhm.
as Carol's girlfriend, and we were all like, okay, cool. And then like it seems like that kind of got very blurred and very overshadowed because I could not tell that they were together or had any sort of feelings for one another in this movie. And B, she is there for another like millisecond, just like every other, you know, stunt casting. Just like the Guardians in Thor Love and Thunder, she is in this movie for like a minute max. So we really didn't get any sort of character from her. And supposedly, like she was in the casting announcement for this movie. So I'm assuming there was more with this character, maybe, or they were at least gonna maybe elongate this scene. And because they were gonna like confirm that she was gay, like there was like maybe like a question of would they explore this relationship with Carol? I don't know. What do you think of the Valkyrie cameo?
Well, I thought that everything pertaining to, like, a specific kind of relationship between Carol and Valkyrie was all speculation. I don't think that it was like, I think that's something that, like, obviously audiences and even the actors wanted. Like, I remember, like, back in, like, 2018, or
Right.
2019, like, Brie Larson and Tessa Thompson, like, tweeting at each other, like, "Hey, like, we should make this happen." Like, it happens in the comic books maybe or
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so they were like, "Yeah, this should totally be a thing, like, we'd be down to do this, absolutely." So I think, like, that was all speculation. I think that this moment could potentially set up a romantic relationship between them because she does refer to she sets it up with, "Oh, I have a friend that can help them, like, she's on her way right now," and then, she's, bifrosted into the spaceship, and she ends
Mhm.
up, like, taking all the scrolls from the planet down to New Asgard, we're assuming, which is why I think that this is pre-Secret Invasion, because I think with, like, everything that happens in Secret Invasion, I don't think that, like whatever, I don't think I
Right.
who knows? Honestly, we don't know what happened in Secret Invasion, so who knows what happened in this movie. Um, but I completely like you said, Jill, I completely forgot that she was gonna be there. I didn't see the promotional moment, like,
Oh,
that
in the
she was
trailer.
gonna be in the movie. Yeah,
Hmm.
I didn't see her in the trailer at all, in any trailers, so I was, like, shocked and pleasantly
Nice.
surprised that she was involved, so
Yeah,
I
I was
enjoyed the moment a
excited to
lot.
see her, but I also think because of the whole, like, Tessa Thompson, Brie Larson joking about it, and the fact that,
Yeah.
like, Marvel in their news I don't think they confirmed that it was gonna be Carol's girlfriend, but, like, confirmed that she was gonna be revealed to be gay in the MCU, and I think that was before Love and Thunder and this, so
Yeah.
people thought it could have been for this,
Yeah.
um, and I
Okay.
think that's the thing is it almost felt like they just did it to appease the fans and, like, give 'em that
Mm.
nod, like, "Oh, uh-huh, she kissed her on the cheek." But I really just
Mm.
think, like, if you're gonna bring in Valkyrie, like, maybe do a little bit more with her, or I don't know, it just
Well,
felt a little bit pandery.
don't you think that it would have been more weird if she just, like, showed up and was like, "Hey, lover," and then they, like, made out? Like, I think that they need to, like, kinda set up, like, leave some breadcrumbs for us to, like, set up, like, a
Yeah,
romantic
maybe.
relationship, because it's the same thing with her and Vision. You can make the same argument that, like, they really only interacted, what, maybe once for 5 seconds in Endgame, and then all of a
Right,
sudden they're in a romantic relationship together?
right.
Like, I think
Yeah.
they need to, like, set up kind of a,
Yeah.
you know, a
Right. No, I
what's the
agree.
word I'm looking for?
I don't know. I
Back and
really don't.
forth.
I don't know.
It's like rapport?
Set up rapport. Yeah.
Yeah, set up a rapport between the 2 of them before they're, like, dating.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I didn't even want them to be dating, but it's also just like I feel like it was just a very random, not random because obviously she needed to get the scrolls off, but honestly, it
Mhm,
did feel like they forced that moment in to make it like instead of her dropping them off anywhere, it's like, oh, let's throw in another character here. Oh, let's make it
mm,
Valkyrie. So the MCU fans who've been wanting Valkyrie and Carol, I also think it's one of those things where almost they only did the kiss on the cheek because they wanted to play it safe because we know Disney, and
mm.
like that's another thing where I'm like, just commit. But I get it. You're right. We need to set it up, give them some rapport. Maybe we'll see them in the future.
Yeah, and then we can
Let's
see them in the future
talk about
together.
the other two cameos though. Let's talk about first at the end of the movie, Kamala's like, which reminds me, which is very interesting because like the conversation they were having had no sort of allusion to any sort of new Avengers forming. It was just a way to segue us, but she was like, "Yeah, just until Monica gets back. Yeah, just until Monica gets back." Which reminds me, cut to Haley Steinfeld, Kate Bishop's apartment. Obviously, we see Pizza Dog, and that's when we knew.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Haley Steinfeld walks in, and Kamala Khan's basically like, "I want to be the Nick Fury for our new team," and like, and
Yes.
Ant-Man has a daughter, so like, let's make it happen. So it looks like we're gonna get either a young women Avengers or just a young Avengers in general.
Yeah.
Right now, it just seems like it's these two plus Cassie Lang supposedly. I'm sure we'll get Yelena. Then there's questions of if they're going to expand to men too. We might get Billy and Tommy. We might
Yeah.
get Isaiah Washington's nephew. So like this is very interesting. Very interesting potential. We could get Love someday, Thor's daughter. We could get Morgan Stark, even though they're both probably a little young at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this was a fun moment, especially seeing my girl Haley. But what do you think of this one?
So, Dill, I thought that it was very fun, and I thought about this, like, last night when I was, like, taking my notes about, like, all my thoughts and feelings. But, like, I thought that it was very fun that she starts the movie and she's like, "Oh my god, you're Nick Fury!" And then she ends the movie being the new Nick Fury.
Right. Yeah, it was cool.
I I I I I love that for her.
Yeah, it was a great
Um,
moment.
because she literally says, like, "I'm putting together a team." And that might be, like, verbatim what Tony says to, um,
Bruce.
Thaddeus Ross at
Oh,
the end of The Incredible Hulk. I
oh
think
yeah.
that's literally what he says. But it's the same vein of, like, Nick Fury, going to collect all these people. Um, yeah, I don't remember exactly how it happens, if it's literally just, like, her going, "Which reminds me," and then cut, because that's really weird the way that you're describing it. So that's weird if that's how it's actually done. Um, but that again, a moment I wasn't expecting. I've seen 30 movies at this point. I should probably just like, I should probably anticipate that like they're gonna be like cameos at the end and like in post credit scenes. Like I
Yeah.
don't know why I'm so surprised, but like I don't know, maybe I just wasn't expecting it to be Kate Bishop. I thought that that was very fun, and yeah, it could be uh all women, it could not be, but either way, I'm excited, and this is what
Yeah.
I, was saying at the beginning of all of this when I said, like, it's been a minute since, like, an MCU movie set up something that I'm actually excited about, and I think
Right.
that, hopefully everything gets, like, flushed out with, like,
Yeah.
phase 5 and whatever the heck
Right,
is
because 'cause we've
going
been
on.
wondering, we've been like, "Where's this all building to?" And it could just
Yeah.
be that the next generation is taking over, which also, though, did make me a little sad because 'cause I'm like, "Is this the end of Carol?" Because honestly, this movie kinda makes it seem
Well,
like it's the end. Like, she fixes what she needed to fix, she gets the son
yeah,
back, and then she
yeah.
flies away and into the night, and then she's has this moment with Kamala, it's really nice, and then the next moment, Kamala is kind of moving forward.
Yeah, and we should mention that she ends with buying Maria's house in
Right.
Louisiana, so it looks like her main home base now is going to be there on Earth, which is cool. I think that, with the choice of having Monica be the sacrificial play at the end and her ending up in the parallel universe where now
Mm,
has met some other characters from other universes. Um, I think that, this has the potential to for Carol's maybe like third installment to be, trying to find her. And then, then she meets all the people that Monica was hanging out with in her mid-credit scene, which was Dill. Do you want to tell everyone?
Yeah, so Monica wakes up, kind of just plummeting all the stakes we had in not knowing if she was alive or dead.
Mhm,
Confirms that she is alive because
mhm,
that's the MCU for you. Bring back
mhm,
characters.
mhm,
This time,
mhm.
5 minutes after. Anyway, she wakes up, sees her mom, and we're like, oh. And immediately I'm like, okay, so she's in another reality. We kind of got that she had been blown into it just because of her closing the wall. We're like, she's probably in another universe. This has all been about the multiverse this entire phase. So I'm like, okay, so this is the multiverse Captain Marvel, right? And then she goes, "Who are you?" And you're like, "Ah, shit." So she doesn't know who she is.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
who comes around the corner? But Beast from X-Men, voiced still again by Kelsey Grammer, except instead of giving him really cool prosthetic makeup, they make him look CGI and it looks atrocious. But
So it's
cool
just his
voice.
voice, or was it him?
Well, I mean, it was all CGI, so I don't know. I think it
No.
was one of those things like Sandman in Spider-Man: No Way Home, where it was just the voice. But I don't know.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
Okay.
It could have been him on set, but he didn't. It wasn't makeup, is what I'm saying. It wasn't
Yeah,
makeup.
yeah, yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. You
it
said
could have
that
been a
after we got
Thanos
out of the
mocap thing.
movie.
Yeah, the CGI looked atrocious, but cool. Um, and then the big reveal, actually the bigger reaction from our crowd was when they then cut to Maria standing in front of the famous X door. The X door
Yeah.
basically confirming that the X-Men is happening. And Beast did mention Charles. The question I have, and I know a lot of people are a little upset, when Marvel got the rights to X-Men, people
Uh-huh.
thought they were just going to recast it and like start fresh and do the
Yeah.
MCU's version of X-Men. But it
Yeah.
seems now from Multiverse of Madness with Patrick Stewart, with Deadpool 3 and Logan and Wolverine, it sounds like they're just going to be using the original cast, and this
Mhm.
multiverse is a way to bring the original cast in. How do you feel about that?
I love that.
Okay.
I don't know how. I mean, like, obviously, like, the younger cast is older now, and then the old cast is
They're
still
also
old.
yeah.
So I'm like, who are they gonna use? Who's gonna be Charles when, if and when we meet him in this universe that Monica's in? Is it gonna be James McAvoy, or is it gonna be uh
Yeah. My
or
thought
Patrick
is that it's
Stewart?
probably Patrick Stewart because I think this is the same universe
Oh, you
as
think that this
Multiverse,
is the
right? I
same
don't know.
universe as Multiverse of Madness with the Illuminati? Here's
Maybe.
my thing though.
Oh,
Maria
because she
Rambeau
died though.
s-
Yeah.
Maria Rambeau stood up, and she wasn't in the Captain Marvel uniform. She was in a different suit. So I'm like,
Oh, was she?
is she a different person? I have to Google this because I'm not a comic book person. I don't know based off of just what the suit they're wearing, um,
Right. Um,
what character they
I don't
are.
think it confirmed. Maria Rambo post credits. Yeah, I don't think there's any confirmation of what the suit was. Um,
Because
I think
people saw her standing up and people in our crowd reacted to it. So
it was the
I was like,
door.
"Oh my."
No, it was the door
It was the
behind her.
door?
Yeah, because it had a big X on it.
I wasn't even looking at the door. I was looking at her. I was
Well,
looking
it's the
at what she was
cinematographer's fault.
wearing. Because
Cinematographer should have framed the door better.
Jill, because this is what happened. They had her literally, like, wrapped up in a blanket. So I thought the reveal was what she was wearing because she was literally sat there like this, and then she
Gotcha.
takes it off and she's wearing this, like, generic black suit. I think it has some, like, stars on it, but it's not the Captain Marvel suit that we saw her wearing in Multiverse of Madness.
Okay.
So I thought
I
that she was a completely different
I got it.
person.
I got it. I got it.
Okay,
So,
okay.
there's a character. The suit confirms her as binary, which is an alias of Captain Marvel that first
Oh,
appeared in an X-Men comic.
okay, so she's still Captain Marvel.
So yeah, it's binary, which is yeah, also known as it's Carol Danvers as a mutant is known as binary. So yeah, that's it. Who's binary in the X Men? Yes, the binary of the comics was Carol, not Maria. Okay, so now Maria's binary instead of Carol in the comics. I don't know. I'm not a
I
comics person
see.
either, so I was freaking out about the door. I was like, well, "Did you see it? Did you see it?" And you're like,
Oh,
"What?"
no.
Because that's like the famous door from the movie too. It's like the round one with the X on it. I was
Yeah,
just
I
very
know what
excited.
door you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. The only question I kind of was wishing that MCU, oh, we got the rights, we're gonna just reboot the X-Men and like
Mhm.
recast all these roles. So
Oh,
I'm wondering if they're still gonna do that or if they are just gonna roll with the people they had. Now, obviously for like Beast, maybe they're gonna pick like Kelsey Grammer because he's just perfect casting. Maybe it's like one of those things like when they redid The Lion King, they kept James Earl Jones as Mufasa just because you can't really replicate that. It could be
uh-huh.
that kind of scenario. I'm not sure.
Um, yeah, I don't know, Dill. I think that the point though was, as much as I would love for like it could be the same characters and a new group of actors, absolutely. I'd still be excited, but I think that the point was is that they were tying in, that universe. You know
Gotcha.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that those all those movies that happen are now would now be considered, I guess, canonically MCU.
I guess. And if
Um
that's the case, all Marvel trivia competitors aren't you in store for some fun.
Oh,
Um,
what was I gonna say though? I had a thought in my brain. Um,
I have lots of
um,
thoughts in my brain.
oh, what were you talking about?
Kelsey Grammer, X-Men, Carol, Monica,
Maybe
Maria.
something about Monica?
The fact that she was dead and now she's alive because MCU does that.
Maybe I wrote it down in my notes. Hold on.
I don't know. Any other thoughts while she's
Oh,
looking? Oh, there we
we
go.
didn't we didn't talk
I
about
always do
this.
that. Yeah.
Um, so you had mentioned the graphics still, and I thought that and we didn't even, like, mention how cool the fight choreography was between them switching and when they finally figured it out, and then they're, like, switching and they're using, like, each other's, like not each other's powers, they're using their own powers, but, like, they're using them in the right ways, whatever. It was
Yeah, it
the
was cool.
coolest fighting that we got since the last final sequence of Guardians 3, you know,
Okay.
fight choreography-wise. I
So the
just wanna
best
say that.
choreography since the last movie.
Okay, but I'm just you know what I mean,
I know
because
what you
all the
mean.
other movies, like, the fighting didn't really stand out in Thor: Love and Thunder or
Yeah. I thought no,
Quantumania.
I thought the concept of them switching was really cool. It added a cool element to it.
Yeah, something
And
we've
it was
never
almost a
seen
sad
before.
there was almost a sadness at the end when they don't switch and Brie
Yeah.
Larson was kind of like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's better, I guess."
Yeah!
Which again, they don't expand on. That it just
Yeah.
happens and then it's over. But yeah, it was a fun introduction. Again, the visual effects don't always hold up for me, but like the concept of it was really cool. So I was excited.
Okay, but Dale, what I'm so surprised you didn't bring up was the fact that I think that the what I noticed, at least, not with, like, like, any physical visual effects that had to do with any characters or, like, CGI stuff with, like, specifics, what I thought was interesting was that the spaces that they were in were pretty empty. Like, they were literally in space and, like, yeah, like, that's easy to design because it's just black and stars. But then there's, like, a moment where they, like and then, like, the water planet is, like, you just have to design a background, a green screen with, like, just blue water around them. And then they, like, fly from that planet, and then they crash land on a totally different planet, and that planet is completely empty. It looks like a wheat field. It looks
Right.
like they landed in the middle of Kansas, which I thought was their way. I was like, "I see exactly what you're doing, Marvel. You're just making these big empty spaces so you don't have to go crazy doing stuff in the background like they had to do for Quantumania."
It's a
So
good
now my
idea. Yeah.
question for you is, do you think it's better to just, like, have an absence of nothing, or would you rather them really build the world around them, but have it not be great graphics?
Build a practical world. Me in the middle. Look at Guardians 3. What's the name of
Okay.
the flesh planet thing?
Orgoscope.
The orgoscope. That's perfect because it's all practical, but it still has a tangibility. The best stuff in the fight sequences in this movie for me was in Kamala's house because there was a tightness to it and there were
Oh, yeah,
props and stuff. That's all practical.
right.
Like you just
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
set
yeah.
things. Literally, just film stuff on location. It'll go a long way for you people. Like it will literally. You won't need CGI. It'll just be natural visual effects.
You know what movie filmed on location?
You're gonna
Eternals.
say it. Okay, Eternals. Yeah, exactly. And the fight sequences and the CGI in that film looks great. So
I'm just saying.
I know, I know.
Um, but yeah, that's. Oh, did you give this movie a rating, Dill?
Yeah, 5 out of 10. I was right in the middle on it because I think it wasn't good enough. Is that what you gave it?
No,
Oh, why are you making that face? You thought I was
because
gonna go lower?
that is wait. No, I thought it was gonna be better than that. Right in
That's
the middle,
that's
a 5.
5 is average. 5 and 6 is average. It's an average movie to me. It's not above average for me because of all the things I don't like about it, but it's not below average.
Okay, well, I gave it a 7.8 out of 10.
Okay, that's great. Listen, you knew I didn't like it as much as you, and honestly, the
Yeah,
first time we watched it, I gave it a 4, so it went up a half a star when I watched it with Zach and Rachel, just because I was able to enjoy some things a little bit more than others. Um, yeah, it's just who I am, Kels. Don't make me feel bad.
no,
Zach made me
I
feel bad too. You and Zach both made like you just now,
sorry.
and then Zach in the theater goes, "You just," because beforehand when we were going to see it, I was like, "Yeah, I thought it was okay," and then he goes, "You thought this was just okay," and he like made this face at me. I was like, "Listen, it's what I thought. I don't know. I'm trying. I want to
I'm
love
not
every
trying.
movie like Guardians 3. Guardians 3 is my favorite MCU movie, so like I know it can be done, but
It's not that I'm trying to make you feel bad, Dill. It's just that uh, I want everyone to like the things that I like.
I did find the shot I was talking about of the horrible rendering of Carol where it's very clearly a stunt double and it's not her. Like
Oh,
just that kind of stuff. Like this whole background and stuff, it's not the background and it's not her, it's the combination of both. It's the lighting of the actual
yeah.
actor with the background stuff. That's the stuff I'm like still trying to get used to, I guess. Like even this shot, like hold on. I was talking to Corey a lot about it, our favorite Corey Ross. But like this shot, even like just the way the lighting is on her is just off. It just looks
Yeah,
fake,
yeah,
looks
I get
bad. So
that.
like things like that, where I'm just like, I want to enjoy this movie so much, but then things like that happen. But I feel like our criticisms are very similar. It's just you were more passionate about the stuff you loved, whereas I was a little bit harsher on the stuff we didn't like.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately we have the same kind of consensus, which is just that it was way too rushed. If it had given more time and Marvel had like just allowed Nia Costa to do her thing and not take over so much in the editing room, I think it could have been a lot better.
It is
And
just so
yeah,
typical that a woman-led project just feels so forgotten
I know.
and neglected when,
Mhm.
like, they pumped in a bunch of bullshit and money and fucking gave probably Taika Waititi and Peyton Reed all the time in the world to tell their shitty
Right.
stories when they hacked apart this story that could have been really, really good and
Right.
really, really impactful. And it
Yeah,
just
and
like it speaks to just like how I feel when it comes to just
yeah.
like the sexism in this universe and how
Well,
I
and
thought that
that's
things were getting better when really I don't think they are.
and that's why I'm trying my best to make sure people know like I like the characters and I like the dynamic. The fact that they're all women is the best part about this movie. And I think
Yeah.
people need to understand that. Like the reason this movie doesn't work for me is for a multitude of reasons that are probably at the hands of a man. It's not the hands of a woman. And I think the
Yeah.
woman who directed this did a great job and just unfortunately we're not seeing her full vision. And I think the three women at the center of the film are doing great jobs. So I hope people understand like I'm not coming at it of that point of view of like someone who's trying to like say, "Oh, it's a woman team up movie, that's why it sucks." Like it's not. I love the first Captain Marvel. It's one of my favorites. So like I think that might also have to do with it too a little bit because I love that first one so much that this is a very big pivot. So maybe that had something to do with it. But yeah, I do like the women in this film a lot, and I don't want people to think I'm a sexist. But if I came across that way, Kelsey, I apologize.
No, 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 no. I don't I'm not saying that's a criticism on you, Dill. I think that's a
Oh,
criticism on the hands of this universe.
gotcha, gotcha.
No, I think
Um,
that everything that you've said about it is really valid because it's true. I'm saying that had it been given the time and attention it needed and it wasn't so obviously just like neglected and forgotten about and mistreated that it could have been much better. It really could have saved like the fate of the MCU in my
yeah,
opinion had
yeah,
they treated this movie
because
better.
the film that could have saved it was Guardians, except the idea that James Gunn is no longer aboard.
But now James
Yeah,
Gunn, that's the
right,
last
right,
Guardians movies of the Guardians that we know them,
yeah,
and James Gunn fucked off to go play at DC. So
But I'll say this right now, Echo looks awesome. So I'm hoping that's like a step in the right
yeah, it
direction.
does. It does look
But
really great.
that transitions us to next week. We will be talking next week. I'm going to be on vacation for like the next few weeks. So we have a
Okay.
bunch of pre-recorded trivia matches that we're going to kind of December is going to be like trivia month. December is just going to be trivia until we get What If. But the next week we still have to cover the Loki season finale. But I thought, you know what? Wouldn't it be a fun little Thanksgiving treat if you got a bigger meal than you signed up for? You're going to get a Loki reaction and review, and I'm also going to release 2 trivia matches on the same day because why not?
Mm.
'Cause I want to get this puppy rolling. You know, it's been a little bit since we got trivia, so you're gonna see 2 trivia matches and a Loki episode next week. So that'll be really fun. Kelsey and I will find time to record that review before I leave on the plane out of the country.
Wait, when do you leave, Jill?
I leave the 20th, so we just got to make sure to
Okay.
record because that'll be when it airs. So we got to record it probably by the 17th so I can edit it by the 20th. I have the trivia matches locked and loaded and ready to go. But
Okay.
uh, thank you all so much for watching. You can find me down below there. You can find Kelsey down below there. If you're listening on podcast, go to YouTube and look at what down below is. Because that means nothing to you. It might be in the description on the podcast. I don't know. But thank you so much for watching. And if you like the Marvels, please comment below what you thought of it. And please be respectful because there are people who don't like the movie. Doesn't mean they're sexist. There are people who don't like the movie because they're sexist. They have no place in these comments. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the sexism. But if you love this movie, I really want you to champion it in the comments. Don't make it at my expense because I didn't love the movie, but tell us why you love the movie because this is a movie that should be celebrated because there are some good elements to it. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.